So for this session, you will need this sleepy session to support your sleep. Great one to do on a night and an evening, rather just before bed, again and again and again and again. And for this session, you'll need floor space, but not necessarily a yoga mat. So you could have just a big, yummy blanket all over the floor. And you will also need restorative props like blocks, bolster, blanket, cushions, another blanket, an eye pillow, anything that you find helpful to support your body. We'll be starting on the floor without the props, but be warm. We will not be moving robustly at all. Maybe wrap a scarf around you. Feel free to go to the loo or anything before you start, those of you who were with me live. I'm just going to put a little bit more light on the subject. And when you're ready, lie down on your side or your back. Though in fairness, you could lie down any way you like. But what I tend to do a lot, which may not support everybody, is I give choices. And I do think that's very important, and I will continue to give choices. But if I give you too much choice, then sometimes it's hard to decide. So whatever supports you right now, whatever you're inclined towards, if it helps you to know when we do start moving, we'll be starting on our back or side. And notice the support of the floor. The support of what you've chosen in terms of blankets and stuff. And notice what feels kind of nice about this moment. Where I am, it's raining, and I can hear the rain and feel the warmth of where I am. And there's a pleasure in that. Is there something about this moment that feels kind of significantly pleasurable for you? So one of the things that can be most helpful when dealing with sleeplessness or sleep disturbance, given that we want to try to avoid adding to the impact, is trying to notice, even in the middle of a sleepless moment, what feels good. or what feels kind of interesting, like even if I didn't like this sound of the rain, if there was no particular reference or thing that it conjured for me that made it pleasurable, I could just try to notice it objectively and listen to it in detail instead of going into the thoughts and stories about my situation. So if you could imagine now that you are in the middle of a sleepless night, where might you place your attention in a neutral way? Could be visual, like the color of something or the light of something. It could be sensory, of the other senses. It could be the touch of your clothing against your fingertips. Could be the softness or coolness of your pillow. Just see if you can notice some simple sensory things that feel like they can hold your attention, or even better, that you can find pleasure in them. And as you do this now, could you try and take a little memory snapshot in the hopes that the next time you have a wakeful chunk of your night, that you choose this instead of more analyzing or more distressing thoughts. And that is key to the practice of cognitive behavioral therapy, as I spoke about in the little talk. It is about removing yourself from the catastrophizing and connecting to something more neutral, but it's got to be something that you can get behind. It's got to be something that you can feel is true. So getting interested in a sound or noticing the pleasure of something simple like the softness of your clothing under your fingertips, etc., is something achievable. So we're never going into starry fantasy thoughts. Simple and true alternatives to noticing all the time what's wrong, what's problematic, and catastrophizing. And just picture as you lie there, noticing some things that feel good. It could be the tingles of your toes, or the warmth of your cheeks. As you lie there, consider what kind of feeling is this generating in you that might be different from the feeling that might be generated by those catastrophizing thoughts. And is this feeling likely to serve you better in the moment and even in the medium term? Doesn't mean you're not searching and aiming to find as many sleep supports as you can and address this issue. But what are you doing in the meantime? Because it's going to be there every night until you find the thing that supports you. Maybe some self-touch might support you now. What is it like to offer a little stroking, maybe to your hands? Is this something you could do at night? Just offer a little tender self-touch. And I know it takes some serious grown-up choices to choose to do something like this instead of lie there grumbling and tossing and turning and getting mad and feeling annoyed. But the more we practice things that soothe us outside the moment of stress, the more they can help us in the moment. So what does it feel like to just gently stroke your hands or your arms or your face? Could you imagine being able to do that in a sleepless night? And do that now. Travel to different bits of your body. Notice what kind of touch your body wants. And this is really good for inducing the feel-good hormones, self-touch. Do you want to go soft and strokey? Do you want to go more massagey? What quality of touch might you offer your head, your face, maybe your chest, your shoulders, your arms, your hands, anywhere that your hands are drawn to? And you're not trying to do anything with this touch. You're not trying to fix anything. You're just trying to feel the experience of the hands and what they feel under them, the creases of the clothing or the texture of the skin, etc. And what is the experience of the bit of the body being touched, which can often be harder to separate. What's the experience of the receiving part? As our fingertips and palms are so sensitive, they give us so much feedback. It's really hard if you're stroking your arm to notice what the arm's experience, but it's a great meditation to try. Kind of fun. Try and separate those. And then to begin to segue this into a little movement, let's maybe find our way to the legs as well, so that we have to lift a leg maybe to stroke the legs, maybe even the feet. And this light stroking, if you're doing light stroking, is really nice for the lymphatic system. And the less sort of toxic buildup there is in the body, the more possible sleep is, which might be maybe one of the reasons why alcohol is so difficult for sleep. Don't forget the second leg. And if you are doing touch for your lymphatic system, always moving from the extremity towards the heart, stroking from the bottom up in the legs, or the end in for the arms, or the ears down for the neck. the armpits in towards the heart. And then could you see if you can just bring in a little pandiculation, a little animal yawn stretch. In any configuration that comes up for you. And my yawn was deliberate to encourage you to let yourself yawn, which is great for the nervous system. And certainly trying to bring ourselves into the parasympathetic before we go to sleep is pretty much essential. So yawning really helps to bring us to the parasympathetic state. So any of the stuff that I've talked about for relieving stress and supporting the vagus nerve is going to be supportive for sleep. So as you pandiculate, yawn, stretch around the floor, let yourself go any direction you like. You can be staying on your back, you can go to your side, your front. You can fill the whole room with your movement, or you can stay quite small. The idea is to look for what feels yummy without any particular therapeutic aim, just pleasure. As instinctual as you can manage. No one is watching. And over the next half a minute or so, begin to bring that to a close. And it would be great if you could end up on your, let's say on your right side, though that's not particularly important. It's just more that I'll be able to guide you more simply if you're all on your right side. Now, this is why I suggested just a blanket on the floor. I've got a slippy wooden surface, so I'm fine. But if you're on a sticky surface, you might find this movement a bit awkward. Having socks on a wooden floor or a blanket on a wooden floor can be really helpful. So we're on the right side and we're curling into a little ball. Don't curl up if you have osteoporosis, just stay long in the back if you have osteoporosis, but the knees are curled up and the elbows are curled in. And you're kind of imagining that you're looking into your center, winding into your belly. And then on your next inhale, could you extend your left leg and left arm to the top and bottom of your space? So you're lengthening out the two legs, top to bottom. And exhale, curl in again onto your side. Inhale, extend out through those two limbs and see if your body would like to open out onto your back. And if that feels too stretchy, don't open out so far and exhale to curl onto your right side again. And then as you inhale, unfurl again if that suits you and make a big starfish shape on the floor on your back. And if you did get to your back, if you do like that, then as you exhale, curl onto your left side instead of the right side. And this movement is simply, as we inhale, we open out into that starfish. And as we exhale, we curl onto our side. Doesn't matter which side, but for the sake of getting movement for the whole body, you might as well go from side to side. But for some of you, you might not want to open out completely at all. You may just stay on your side and just move a little towards opening and then furl in again. especially if you're feeling kind of emotional and that the delight of staying into your center and nourishing yourself from that is something you want to maintain. Let's use this movement to deepen the breath, or use the breath to lengthen the movement. So let it take as long as it takes to inhale to get to your back. A luxurious long inhale, and as long as it takes to exhale to get to your side. A really full exhalation. Those of you who don't have osteoporosis, you can curl into a teeny tiny ball if you like. And we're doing this simply for pleasure. I hope that you are slippy sliding. And once you've got the movement, notice what you like about it. If you don't like it, I hope you've already stopped and just chosen to do something else. Just another half a minute. If it morphs into something else, that's really fine. Chasing the feel-good factor. Beginning to wind down and hoping to finish on your back. And when you do eventually come to stillness, just notice what you notice in terms of what feels good or what feels interesting. We're going to do a tiny little bit of hip targeting movement because achy hips at night can be a thing for people that keep them awake. So depending on what you've got on your floor, you might need to kind of scrumple up your mat so that you have socks on a wooden surface, because what we need for this is something reasonably slippy. But if you have a blanket on the floor and it's not sticky, you'll be fine. Just take the right leg out long. I'm going to remove some of this because it's confusing. And drape the knee out to the side of the right leg. The left knee can be bent up to the ceiling or flat on the floor. And the right leg, with the toes or the side of the foot always on the floor, is just going to draw circles on the floor. So like you're kind of cleaning the floor with the outside of your foot and the outside of the leg of your trousers. And it's not a big deal, and it's tiring enough. And you're just thinking about warmth in the hip. Your arms can be wherever suits you. And then change direction. It's fine to go to kind of the level of effort or the level of time here where you can feel heat building in the hip, but as long as that's without pain, and it might get a little tiring, you'll be glad when you stop kind of level of repetitions. And then rest the two legs out long, and again, just notice what feels different from hip to hip, and maybe which feels nicer, what's the pleasant sensation in either hip. Get interested in the subtleties. And then either with the right knee bent or out flat, you're going to do the same on the left leg. So the left knee bends out to the side, and you're going to draw lazy, soft circles with the left foot on the floor. With your hands wherever you like. You're cleaning the floor with side of your shin, maybe, if that touches the floor. It might not, depends on your hip, the side of the foot and ankle. And change direction. And the great thing about this session is that none of it is tricky enough that we need a big warm up for it. So you could do sections of it again and again just for 20 minutes before sleep. The favorite bits that appeal to you. And then relax the two legs again and notice the sensations. And then when you're ready, if you have scrumpled up what you were lying on, de-scrumple. And lying on your back again, just take your knees and rock them in a scissors fashion, side to side. So again, we're just getting into the hips a little bit here. Easing them out. Different ranges of motion. So you'll notice that the knee that's uppermost when the knees go over is getting a nice little pull for the outer hip. And we've just already done a good bit of external rotation of the hip, but obviously the knee that's lower is also getting a little stretch in the inner thigh. Also movement across the abdomen, which may help you with digestion, which is potentially beneficial before bed, to be going to bed with digestion not so, just helping you move things through. You're not a bit stuck there. Also stimulating the vagus nerve. And then come back to center. And we'll give ourselves a little abdominal massage. So just circling the hands clockwise around the abdomen, also good for the vagus nerve. Self-touch though, also really nice, supporting digestion, blood flow to the organs, depending on how heavily you massage. And if there's any little bits that you want to work into, go ahead, but always going clockwise. And then the most active we're going to get, we're going to take the left ankle onto the right thigh into eye of the needle or figure four, depending what exercise modalities you go to. And we'll take the right foot off the floor if you can. If that's too much, keep the right foot on the floor and sway the knees side to side. Or you might want to circle if the foot is off the floor. And I'm not bothering with the hands here. You might want to hold your right thigh, but only hold it if you feel like it's uncomfortable to support the weight of your legs without it. It's not a big stretch situation here. And then simply change sides. Maybe the left foot stays on the floor the whole time and you do a little rocking, or maybe you lift up and do some rocking or circling, holding the left thigh if you want to, leaving it if you don't. And then bring that foot down. And just see if there's any one or two little movements that your body wants. Maybe it wants to lift up into a little low bridge pose to stretch the fronts of the hips. Maybe it wants to pandiculate again in a lovely yawn stretch. Maybe it wants to hug the knees. Maybe it wants to twist side to side. Just a little minute of self-led care. See if you can listen to your body and let it do what it fancies. And then coming to stillness for a moment before we come to one of our two restorative poses. So when you feel ready, could you bring your equipment towards the wall? We're going to do legs up the wall. And afterwards, we're going to go into side lying Shavasana. So have your bolster beside you. Why my light is so bad this evening. And have a block for potentially, or a cushion for under your pelvis for when we go legs up the wall. But we might also use that you might also use it in the side lying Shavasana. Have your blanket near you. What else do we need for side lying Shavasana? A cushion for under the head, cushion for between the knees, and a bolster and a blanket are what we need for side lying Shavasana. Or it could be two blocks, a block between the knees and a block between the feet, but something to comfortably rest the head on would be good as well. We may use the blocks when we're in legs up the wall, but the first thing is to get ourselves into legs up the wall by reversing into the wall, trying to kiss the wall with your bum, and then rolling onto your side with your legs up. And you can choose with legs up the wall to elevate the pelvis or not. Just be careful of your neck if you choose to lift the bum to put a block underneath. You don't want to throw too much weight up there. And the pelvis can be elevated, but it's angled away from your face into a little back bend rather than curling the pelvis towards your face and collapsing the lower back to the floor. The feet are above the hips and the legs are draped on the wall. If you find that you're far from the wall, your knees will probably lock, in which case you want to put a cushion or a bolster behind your knees so that they don't feel overexposed and hyper extended. So you can do that with a bolster rather, if your knees are too far away from the wall. Make sure you're going to be warm. And we'll do a couple of breath practices here, one known to support the vagus nerve and the parasympathetic, and the other known to support sleep. So as you hang out there, begin to lengthen your breath, which does actually automatically happen when we go upside down in any way. Our heart rate slows, and so the breath lengthens. But you can also consciously lengthen it to hopefully 5 or 6 breaths per minute. I find 5 is more comfortable than 6. You may feel different. So you're approximately breathing in for a count of 4 or 5 and breathing out for a count of 4 or 5 approximate seconds. And you'll likely have a pause at the top of the inhale and a pause at the bottom of the exhale. So if it was only inhaling and exhaling, you'd be 5 seconds in, 5 seconds out. But most of us have a little pause there at the top of the breath in particular. So paced breathing is this breath rhythm, and that has some good research behind it for supporting sleep. So doing restorative yoga or gentle yoga, meditation, or breath practices, which I can't believe that I didn't mention in the presentation, have great application for sleep. And you could do them in that 20 minutes before you get into bed. You could do it while you're in bed. You could do it in the middle of the night when you wake up. Breath practices. Meditation is what we began with, a meditation on sensation. We looked for physical sensations that felt good, or listening, or seeing things. That's a meditation. You don't have to be sitting up cross-legged and not thinking to meditate. Paced breathing works when we have been practicing it for a while at other times of the day. Like I said in the presentation, stuff works if we can do it when we're not in the difficult situation. We practice it so that when the difficult situation arises, our system is really used to the effects of the practice and will respond more readily. So practicing about 15 minutes a day, even if it's dotted around the day, is what you're aiming for. What I'd like to add now is Ujjayi breath. So when we stimulate the vocal folds, when we make sound, that stimulates the nerve responsible for our rest and repair, rest and restore nervous system response. Ujjayi breath is when you're breathing with the lips slightly closed, but you imagine that you're making the sound or fogging up a mirror while you breathe. It's a very quiet sound, so it's hard for me to do on Zoom. But if you, as you breathe in and out, imagine that you are making the sound HA, not a hard ha, but have the lips closed, you'll usually get that Ujjayi sound. If it makes your vocal folds tired or creates stress in your jaw or you're worrying about it, then let it go. But if you can, your lips are lightly closed, your teeth are apart, and there's a great big cavern inside the mouth to make that sound or fogging up the mirror, like you're internally yawning. Some people find the instruction of imagining you're breathing in and out through a hole in the front of your throat very helpful. So Ujjayi breaths at 5 or 6 breaths per minute. Legs up the wall. Really fabulous single thing you could do for 10 minutes before bed. Only contraindication here would be if you have high blood pressure that is not being resolved by medication. Is there any bits of you that you're holding on to quite tightly that you could relax a little more? So the plan is to stay in this pose for another few minutes. Those of you who are joining live, if you do need to leave the practice early, you're very welcome to do so. We'll be running over time, but only by about 10 minutes. Back to your Ujjayi breath, noticing that your mind will wander and that your job is simply every now and then to remember to bring it back. And notice what's pleasurable in this moment or about any of this. Position you're in, the warmth of your room, the support of your props, the Ujjayi breath, whatever it is. So you're welcome to stay here as long as you like. You could press pause if you're doing the recording. You could choose not to move into side lying Shavasana or do so whenever you fancy. But if you are coming out, just moving slowly to get yourself sufficiently awake just to take out any props, for instance. And you want the bolster to be to your left, preferably, and you bend the knees and roll onto your left side. You'll need to push out from the wall a bit, but not a lot, because you're not going to be, I'm going to demonstrate the blocks before the bolster. You're not going to be straightening the legs. So if you're using blocks inside lying Shavasana, you pop one between your feet and one between your knees. The idea is just to not have the the top knee dropping in. So the sacrum is really neutral. So there's no stretch about this at all. And then the head is on some kind of elevation. So again, the head isn't falling downwards. It's neutral, preferably. I'm just not putting my head down because I'll block my microphone if I do. And then the bolster can either be just cuddled up the full length of you. That's not the traditional side lying Shavasana, but it can be really nice to feel the bolster against the belly for the feel good hormones, that touch and that sense of holding. Or the traditional one is where the bottom hand, the left hand, if you're on your left side, is on the floor and the bolster is just underneath the hand, underneath the arm. So my arm is free. The bolster is just beside it at my chest, touching my chest and going straight out for the top arm to rest on. So again, the bolster is about not letting that top shoulder have to drape forward. So it's just as neutral as possible. And then the lovely thing, and I can't find my blanket. I thought I had it here. The lovely thing that we often do with the blanket in side lying Shavasana, and I don't know whether you can figure it out yourself, is we put the blanket over the back of our body, but also we hide underneath it. So we put it round the top of the head and kind of tuck it into the eye sockets. And lying on your side, we're basically doing what in yoga is known as pratyahara, or withdrawal of the senses, where we cocoon in away from the stresses and strains of the world. And you could return to your Ujjayi breath here. Or, and this may feel funny, we could do some humming. So you might prefer to wait until you sit up at the end of your practice, but I'm not going to bring us out of this practice in a seated meditation because I'm running over time for the live participants. But when you do eventually come out of this into a seated posture, you could just hum 9 times, or you can do it here, or you can om, or you could sing a chant if you have a chant that you sing, because chanting, humming, singing also stimulate the vagus nerve and help us return to the parasympathetic, which is the nervous system state we need to be in for restful sleep. Allow yourself to continue humming, to stop, to save it for another day. And allow yourself to rest in there, cocoon in. The only thing I would advise is that if you find you're falling asleep, you might want to change your position, because falling asleep just before bed is not going to support your sleep for the night. I'm going to read a little poem, which is not about sleep, but is about all the stresses about, am I getting it right? And it's by a woman called Hannah, who I don't know her surname, I'm afraid. You can find her if you are on social media on Hannah R.O. Writes, W-R-I-T-E-S, Hannah R.O. Writes. And it's called Same. I still haven't figured out how to keep my shower floor clean. or make morning smoothies, or respond to stress calmly. Same, my friends tell me. A love note of sorts. Maybe the world doesn't need us to cut down on carbs or make more money or waste less time. Maybe instead it needs us to reach those who feel alone in their messy homes or difficult relationships or unresolved issues. To impress less and connect more. To share one simple message. Same, same, same. So maybe tonight or in other nights, you may be aided by taking a load off. You may be helped to sleep by letting go of one thing that you are pressuring yourself to do or to achieve. Really, the message this evening is, and in some ways, is lighten up our attitude to the difficult moments. If the attitude we are currently developing or currently engaging in is not supportive. While we also try to improve things. Letting go of some of the to-do list and allowing for the possibility of a messy home, unresolved issues, and knowing that we're not alone in that. I hope you rest easy tonight and that you might find an opportunity to do some of the practices again, some just before bed, but also trying to practice in particular the breathing practices during the day at times when you are not in desperate need of them. May you be well. May you be free from harm. May you progress where possible, and may you find ways to sit at ease with the rest. Om Shanti, Namaste, and I hope to see some of you live at the next session.